All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the libp2p weekly sync. The crypt pad is in the chat. Please add your name to the attendees list, add your async updates. If you have any agenda items, add those, and we will get to them at the end of the call. Otherwise, we will just get things kicked off with Vasco.
Hey everyone. So last week I was working first in a doc for JS libp2p configuration. That was one of the main issues we had from community, and we easily had I think 1 weekend off ago someone who created an issue about it. And so I decided that now that we are in the refactor phase, to just create a proper doc for everything from the configuration of JS libp2p. Jacob already reviewed it in Yousef, and I also involved that person who created the issue, and we got really good feedback in the new doc for it. So I think it was a really good improvement. Then I also am working with Jacob in the final things for the release, and we basically achieved last week the interoperability between JS and Go. We have still in the PRs the daemon work, the daemon client work in the interop, but we will hopefully this week level everything up and merge everything. Then finally, I also have been working on refactoring our examples to the new API with the sync stuff. I already created PRs for some of them, but I'm I think in the middle now of all the examples. So this week I will continue with the examples. I've also started a getting started document there. I'm parallelizing work with the examples, and after that I will work on finishing the JS libp2p ping refactor, which we are also missing. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Any questions for Vasco? Nope. All right. Next up is me. Yeah. So fix some bugs with discovery logic in the refactor. So that should be all good to go. That was part of the interop and daemon work. Cleaned up a bunch of code for that. Started working on stats refactor, and then going through that, realized that the metrics collection in JS libp2p and monitoring was super non-performant. We were emitting an insane amount of events. So that's going to get all cleaned up as part of this. So we'll get performance boost there. And we originally looked at making that optional because some people just didn't want it. But right now, Connection Manager relies on it. So we might see what we can do in the interim to get some basic connection management, but we'll likely just use what we have so far and then worry about the connection management stuff when we work on Connection Manager v2. Other than that, yeah, going to finish up the refactor. We are going to do a pre-release this week, come hell or high water. It's coming out. And then we'll start integrating that into JS IPFS, and as part of that, create the migration guide. Any questions for me? All right, next up, Raul.
Okay, find the button. Leave it up to me to do that. Hiring thesis. Been writing a lot of those. Network call. I posted my notes. There was a bunch of thoughts for everybody. I'm talking about the Ethereum 2.0 network call. This is a new series that got started just last week. It was super productive, and I'm very happy that we have this series because it has a different cadence to the standard Ethereum 2.0 calls, which are bi-weekly, and the networking calls is just to deal with networking, and it's going to happen every 3 weeks or every month. So this is great for me. I don't have to participate in the wider calls where networking is just a 10-minute point. For that, I have to join for 2 hours. So that's great. I've been writing a job description for a technical project manager. I think we have a really good sense now of what we want there. It took a while, but this is basically the first time in the org that we're hiring this kind of role. So it's pretty greenfield right now in unexplored territory. Reviewed a bunch of PRs and also worked on the noise spec, which barring the padding PR from you, Yousef, which I think you should revive in some manner. And revisit and rebase and all that and see if after everything that you've done so far it still stands. Then we have to act on it because other than those two PRs, I think the spec is finished. Next, I'm going to be in Madrid and in Zurich for the Test Ground Hack Week. I'm producing a lot of design blueprints for Test Ground. I'm going to be taking on the project lead duties while Mike is away. He's going to be away for kind of like an extended period of 6 weeks, where I think like after 1 month he's going to be working partially for 2 hours just to keep the recruitment going. I need to look at deep metrics for libp2p and deep tracing. This is important for Test Ground, so I'm going to do that this week, hopefully. Give another push to multi-select 2.0 and unblock everybody else. So if you've got anything for me, ping me directly.
Excellent. Any questions for Raul? Once, twice, sold. All right, Yousef, you're up.
So a lot of the stuff that I actually got merged in happened the past couple of days. Like Thursday, Friday, I pulled in the Go Noise libp2p implementation the ChainSafe guys did over the summer and fixed some stuff in there. There's a couple open PRs there. It's getting closer to where I think we can. I've been going through and making issues, and so far, like I've got like one milestone defined, which is like ready for experimental use. Like, hey, we're not gonna like the API could change whatever, but you know, this is you could start using it, and basically that would be like wire compliant with the spec at a wire protocol level. I feel is like the marker there, and then after that, we'll want like this is stable, and we're probably not going to change it very much, and the ultimate goal is like we'll have included in Go libp2p by default. So I still haven't really like figured out what's in those two buckets yet. But it's been pretty fun like hacking on it, and I think it's coming along okay. And then the other thing I did sort of in the earlier part of the week was just like a lot of head scratching about how to move forward with the signed routing records, and Raul helped me clear up that we don't really need a bunch of big interface changes. We can sort of hide the implementation details for like whether you're going to be using signed records or not inside the DHT, and then users won't really notice a difference. They'll get addresses. They will come from a signed source if you're like, if you say I only want signed records, and there'll be like a little transition period where you're probably getting both until everybody's upgraded. So that I haven't done much with that today. I've mostly been thinking about noise things, but I'd like to get the open PRs that I have, like for the just enabling signed records at all, sort of in the can or whatever, because that'll unblock Viso, who wants to use the signed record exchange in Gossip Sub. So I think I've been looking over that this morning. There's a couple things that, there's things that we could improve, but I'm not sure that we can't do it later. Like, I don't know that we have to do it right now before we merge them in, since the big, the reason I was hesitating at all was because like if we're going to make breaking interface changes, we should break them all at once maybe. But I think that this might be the only breaking interface change we need. So I'm just going to go through and make sure that everything is decently clean, and then I'll probably just send up a flare like, hey, can we please review and merge this in the next, like maybe tomorrow, just to kind of get that stuff in there so people can start building on it. And then I'll look at the DHT and how we can actually integrate that throughout the week.
So the one thing that I was thinking about, I don't know what your thoughts are, is how are we going to encapsulate the APIs and the primitives to actually generate these records? So removing the usage of these records by the DHT, we know that there are several subsystems that are going to use these records, right? So DHT being one of them. So I think the idea here is like try to think about how you'd model some kind of library that in probably core, right? In Go libp2p core, to create, generate, and to store these routing records completely decoupled from the usage of those records within the DHT itself or within peer exchange.
Yeah, so far the only creation method I have is just like a free function that takes a host and will like use the private key to sign to and whatever addresses the host has. But that's I'm kind of like hung up on that at the moment because we probably don't like, we want to filter those out, maybe like filter out the local addresses and stuff. So that's what I'm trying to like on the fence about. Do we need that right now or not?
Okay. Let me have a look. Let me have a look at all of that because I have a lot of ideas. And you and I have only caught up on like the DHT side of things, but really there is like a whole set of primitives that need to exist so that any component in the system can use the signed routing record. So yeah, let's catch up on that, and I'll give you some guidance.
Apart from the generation, right now the only place you can get them is the peer store. So those are the two places to look as you're going through, really. But,
Cool.
Sweet. Any other questions for Yousef? We have one thing. So Node Factory emailed us this week, last week. It's already this week. So I think they have like an initial implementation of it. I'm not sure what the testing is for that, but in theory, we can try to figure out what we need to do to get maybe interop testing hooked up to that for the suite, so we can actually.
You cut off for a second there for me. I don't know if for everybody else as well.
Yeah, I lost like a.
Yeah, I think you're talking about JS libp2p noise, right?
Yeah, so the Node Factory finishing that up.
Nice.
So that hasn't. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that sounds awesome. Did you said they sent an email? Is that like somewhere?
Yeah, they touch base with us. I'll message the repo. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But yeah, it would be cool to see what we can do to get like interop testing with Alex. I messaged that in chat. That's the repo for JS. So, and that conforms to the new async refactor API. They've been using that API. So whatever we need to do on our side to hook that up for interop tests, that would be cool to do.
Awesome. I'll start checking it out.
Sweet. Anything else for Yousef? All right, next up, Biggs.
I guess one question for Yousef about is the reason that you want to leave the interfaces the way they are because we think we should leave them the way they are, or because we can get by without changing them?
So that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I feel like for me, it's mostly because we can get by, and I'm not sure like that I currently see like a better enough situation to like advocate for breaking them. But it is possible that, you know, the interfaces could use like a bigger like sort of review, and we could figure out if they're actually working. Like I know that like there are, I don't know, the peer store is like a giant sort of mecha interface at this point. Like there's a lot of like these big global interfaces like you're talking about in that issue that like feel like they look familiar to me as a Java guy, but I feel like they're kind of not necessarily what we want. And as far as the signed records go, like I guess it kind of depends on like how accessible and how visible we want them to be throughout all the pieces of the system. Like so I kind of, yeah, right now like they're only exposed in the peer store. Maybe that's okay given that the peer store like is broadly accessible, but yeah.
Yeah, no. So one reason why they can't be exposed only in the peer store and they need to be exposed using the event bus is that they will change. So as our addresses change and we discover new addresses for ourselves, and you know how that does its thing, and there's the magic of the internet happens, they will change. So we can't. The peer store is not the right place. The peer store is a static store, right? It does have no, it doesn't have any subscription facility, so it can't be that can't be the place. It's got to be the event bus.
There is a thing where like you can push new addresses through a channel, but I didn't actually implement that for signed records yet because again, like I wasn't really sure how it would be consumed. So
but that's intended for when you do a query and you want to receive the results asynchronously, not to. I don't know.
It's not like over the whole lifetime of your relationship.
Actually, it could be. Yeah, you're right. I think it does have a subscription capability, but it's not really used in the system. That's technical debt because it's not used.
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of my hesitation to go and like make a bunch of drastic interface changes is just like still kind of getting used to how the current interfaces work. So, but I'm not sure that I'm have the right perspective on this yet.
No, you know, the single thing that, this is on me, I have to help you, and I have to, we have to design the different So the overall solution, right? And all the components that are actually going to be touched. So in general, it's just a design blueprint for this, right? This is what's missing here. And
that makes sense.
You're kind of like going around and like inserting, but you don't have clarity.
Yeah,
So
I've had a pretty local view of this problem, and mostly just trying to like make the minimally invasive changes. But I don't know that that's the correct, like, I mean, it's not really a design. It's just like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So let's do one thing. I'll sketch out some notes on everything that I think needs to be touched, just an outline, and then I'll evolve it just so I can unblock you for now, and I'll evolve that into just a fully fledged design blueprint over the next few days. But I think this like an outline would be good enough for now.
Yeah, sweet.
You know, there's changes in the event bus. There's going to be changes in the peer store. The peer store changes don't need to be interface breaking, and we gotta like test it against the DHT. We gotta create a library such that it can be incorporated in the different discovery mechanisms that are going to be using this. There's a bunch of things. I'll outline.
Yeah. On a sort of semi-related note, I feel like my naming could use like a little like consistency pass or whatever. Like in some places I'm calling them signed records, and other places certified records, and like whatever. I mean, we might as well just figure out what we want. And clean up before we merge things in.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, Cole, for real this time.
I'll believe it when I see it. This is my last week, everybody. So I am wrapping things up, but urge all of you to please keep in touch. I will be around for sure. Last week I kind of was taking a last pass at the security audit stuff, and it just kind of turned out that like a lot of the things that were reported in like the final round of audits were essentially, won't call them non-issues, but things that like we consider to be kind of design decisions and won't change. So I started to write up just kind of an explainer for that, so that we can start, have the beginnings of like a document that explains like why these decisions were made. And I will finish that up this week. And the only other thing really on my plate is just like some final pull requests that I promised and totally didn't deliver on. So gonna review a couple of things that are outstanding, but beyond that, yeah, just wrapping things up. It's been really wonderful working with all of you. I will miss you dearly. So do not be strangers. I'm around. And if you're ever in New York and looking to have a bad time or even a good one, hit me up.
Any questions or digital hugs for Cole?
Oh, I miss you, buddy.
All right. Next up, Adine.
Yeah. So the libp2p pub sub router thing seems pretty mergeable. Should be happening soon. Would like to do a little more testing, but unfortunately I can't do the testing with IPFS because of some interface shenanigans around the asynchronous data stores. All those PRs are like merged and usable within libp2p. It's just in order to put them in an application, you got to get everybody doing the same things at the same time. It turned out for the router, we still need the rebroadcast messages. They're not like optional until we can expose in pub sub events that say, hey, we dropped a message. But as soon as we do that, we can remove the rebroadcasting. So that's nice. And then I'm just going to try and start being useful with DHT things. Rule asked me to review a PR, so I'm going to do that. The other ones I was going to look at were John and Steven's PRs about querying multiple paths at the same time, and then also allowing paths to terminate, because you sort of need to do both of those things, not just one of them, if they're going to be useful at all. Another one I was just sort of interested in and was running by some of the like JS IPFS folks, is whether it's feasible to tackle the content routing via multi-hash, or at least not make it so that if we switch to CIDV1 by default, that we don't have to do 2 DHT queries to look for the same data. And if it's possible to do this without like turning all the interfaces inside out by maybe just having everyone rebroadcast as CIDV zeros or some preset CIDV1 or something like that. And I don't know, like, I guess I wanted to gauge whether this sounds like really big thing, lots of design decisions, or whether it's, yeah, as long as you don't break the interfaces, we can push the design decisions down to like a month or two from now. Yeah, that's all for me.
Any questions, comments, or feedback for Adine?
Okay.
Okay. We are done with the list, but we have a couple of people on the call, so let's go alphabetically. Jim.
Okay, I'm mostly saving my updates for the test ground meeting tomorrow, but I am sort of embarking on a new test, doing some connectivity testing, which is obviously going to use some libp2p there. So I'm just absorbing information. So, there's a whole process going to be like figuring out what I'm actually going to bake into these tests. I think parts of it will develop some parts of test ground which will be reusable by anybody who wants to build some testing for the libp2p software you're writing, and hopefully that will be useful to people.
Awesome. Anything for Jim? No. Yanis?
Hello. So yeah, so I've been carrying on with some work on the Gossip sub front and mainly the writing of the technical report that is going to be useful for people in and out of PL. So I've been catching up with Viso quite a bit, a little bit with Raul, and there is a first draft of this ready. It's not exactly readable to share with outside people. If anyone wants to have a look, just ping me. I can give you. It's an overleaf LaTeX document. So if anyone wants to have a look or edit, just give me a shout. I can give the link. I hope that I'm going to have a version of that ready before Christmas. Might be a little bit optimistic, but I'll do my best to have it. Yeah, these will not include results, but Raul said that this is fine. They are not looking for results at this point. Results is going to be good for the more general like community, but we can live without it for now. So I'm going to try and focus on what are the main features, the added value, comparison with related work, and what is better, what is worse. So likely I'm going to have some more one-to-one catch up with Viso to get an understanding of what he had in his mind when designing that. Raul, is that enough to have in mind when producing?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think the technical description and the comparison with the state of the art is honestly would go to great extent right now to what we need. These things keep coming up, right? Especially like, hey, is there what are the other options beside Gossip Sub, right? This keeps coming up, not because people do not trust Gossip Sub, but because they want to know what else is out there and at what scale it's actually been deployed, right? So it's completely understandable. So yeah, that would help. It's even for me, right? Like even for us, for this team, we are all behind Gossip Sub, and we are really working to enhance Gossip Sub in different manners. But I don't think we have a clear understanding of what has been achieved in the past in this domain, and what has actually been deployed, what hasn't. So yeah, that would be super useful.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to focus on that. I've done quite a bit of related work reading a couple of months ago when I was preparing the first one. I need to brush up a little bit and talk to Viso in greater detail, but I hope I'm going to put most of next week on that.
And Yanis, I would say that we can also release this in circles, right? So if you don't feel like you feel like there's still some work to be done to get it to a stage where you feel it's complete to like be released to a wider audience, then we can release it to like select people as well, right? To get their feedback.
Yeah. So my plan with this is that eventually, we discussed this before, it would be good to have a kind of like published paper out of that. So in order to get there, we'll need results, first of all, which with test ground and the Filecoin Lotus implementation, it's going to be there, but it's going to take a few months. That's fine. So the first version should be, it's going to be a living document. That's what I'm saying. So it is going to be, as you say. Then from then on to who we want to release it, I will need some reviews and opinions from you.
Yeah, sure. So let's do one thing. Do this sprint, see where you get to before Christmas, and then we get together. We assess, what we've achieved, what you've achieved, and what else, like what other points where you feel less confident or whatever, and we decide, do we release it to an audience, do we like send it to a few people only, and like we can have a checkpoint there.
Yeah. No, whatever is going to be there is going to be accurate and technically correct, certainly, that's for sure. So
it's good enough for me. You just you just give them the expectation that this is an evolving document, so keep checking in.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, good.
Cool, awesome.
Right. Any questions for Yanis? All right, we are almost out of time. It doesn't look like there are any agenda items. Is there anything anybody wanted to bring up? Nope. All right, everybody, have a good week, and we will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.